The latest CNBC Fed Survey is out. Steve Leisman joins us now with more. Hey, Steve.
It's nice to hear you being excited as I am about this, Joe, with the Fed meeting today amid considerable disagreement among respondents to the CNBC Fed Survey, not over what the Fed's going to do, but what they should do, and growing concern over President Trump's intentions for Federal Reserve independence. Here's the Fed expectations chart. 97% think the Fed's going to cut by 25, but only 41% think the Fed should cut by that amount. 62% say Federal Reserve Governor Cook will remain on the Fed. In other words, the president will not be successful, is the expectation, in firing her. 55% say CEA Chair Stephen Miron's unpaid leave from the CEA chair is inappropriate. And 82% say President Trump is trying to limit or eliminate Federal Reserve independence. When it comes to what respondents believe the president's intentions are for Fed independence, 41% say limit it, 41% say eliminate it, just 10% think the Fed is supporting it. For the record, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Stephen Miron have supported Fed independence in public comments. But the effects of these presidential actions, 68% believe it will lead to higher inflation, 57% believe it will lead to higher unemployment, 54% believe it will lead to lower economic growth, and a division there over whether it means higher or lower interest rates, but 74% say it will mean a lower value to the U.S. dollar. Okay, what about when it comes to the meeting today? 41% think a 25 basis point cut is appropriate, but 28% think the Fed should cut 50. 28% say the Fed shouldn't cut at all. This mirrors disagreements we know about on the Fed over the right policy in the face of somewhat higher inflation, but flagging job growth. Our 29 respondents put the current 2025 year-end funds rate at 3.6%. That's down about 30 basis points from our July survey, you can see there. And then a pretty good drop for 2026, down to 3.13. What's important about that number is the long-run rate is 3.2%. So the belief that the Fed gets relatively quickly by the end of next year to the terminal or long run rate. Last night, as you said, an appeals court cleared the way for Fed Governor Lisa Cook to remain on the Fed board, rejecting the administration's attempt to overturn an injunction on President Trump's firing. And CEA Chair Stephen Miron approved by the Senate. So a full slate of 12 voters will take up the issues, not only of what the Fed does today, but what it signals for future policy. Worth pointing out, there's little sign of these concerns about Fed independence in either the bond or the stock market. And I suppose, Joe, that's another conversation to have.
Yeah, we heard about Bullard. Who's left? Do you know? We hear 11, we hear 3. You know what? I guess we could have asked Treasury Secretary. I don't know if he would have given us an answer, but what are you hearing for Jay Powell?
What we reported exclusively, Joe, last week was that he had interviewed the 3 officials, adding another one over that time period, Rick Reeder. So there's 4 interviews we know about. And then the officials have told us that the Treasury Secretary was waiting until the blackout period ends to begin interviewing the sitting Fed officials who are being considered, Lori Logan among them, and of course Chris Waller. And I can tell you, Joe, I just want to double check my number because I forgot I wanted to say this, but Chris Waller is leading our respondents, our 29 respondents, 45%, I want to say. Hold on, I'm just going to search Waller in my document here. He is the #1 pick for this group when it comes to who they think will be Fed chair. Of course, Rick Reeder, as you know, we reported, has sort of risen in the ranks in terms of those who people think, who officials think has a chance to be Fed chair as well.
Really? Where's Warsh? Would you say that's a...
Hang on, I don't know why this thing, sometimes
so
Microsoft
Waller,
is not...
But we heard about Bullard. Bullard is pretty impressive, but I don't... Some of his comments were about... go ahead.
I think, those were interesting comments from the Treasury Secretary you got this morning about Jim Bullard. He was sounds very well regarded. Here we go, Joe. Of our 29 respondents, 49% think President Trump will name Waller. 45%. Warsh is at 24%. Hassett at 17%. Bullard's just at 7%, and Reeder just at 3%. The other groups, Bowman, Jefferson, all have 0 right now. Of course, we asked last month who the president will pick and who he should pick. Warsh led the should pick, and Hassett led the will pick. So I think there's two things. I guess we'll have to come back to that. Maybe we'll do an in-between Fed survey on this issue.
Far more questions than you used to on the. You're getting more and more like the sports books, where you can bet on anything now.
Yeah, we don't have a book on this, but maybe Joe will help us.
But the questions you're asking are way different than they used to be.
Let me look.
Further afield.
Polymarket, next Fed chief. Let me see.
I don't know. I mean,
they're interesting questions. I like them. I just feel like you're expanding.
Well, first of all, you have to expand to survive. But the other thing is that I think the issue of who will be Fed chair and how that folds into the outlook for policy, to me, are really critical questions for the Fed survey to figure out.
Yeah, totally legit.
It's a horse race, Steve, on Polymark. 22 to 32 for Waller, Hassett 15 to 20, Warsh 12 to 20. It's no announcement this year.
I missed the first one. Who's in the lead on that Polymarket?
Waller, but 22 to 30, 22 to 32%. Not No, that's not.
But there'll be headlines we'll have to watch. We actually interviewed Waller, you remember, and he told us that he had talked to the Treasury Secretary. And I don't know if that was the formal interview. I'll have to go back to my sources and see if that was the interview before the Fed blackout period. So he's got Waller, Bowman, Jefferson, and Logan as sitting Fed officials. I think the Zervos interview might have taken place. I'm not sure. Have to double check that. But we know it was Lindsay, Reeder, Bullard, and Warsh have been interviewed already. I think what's interesting here is the process is very transparent by the Treasury Department. I think that's super important. And what we were told, of course, was that what Besson's trying to do is just add a couple names to those who the president is already familiar with for him to consider. And ultimately, he has very much underscored that this is the president's choice here.